Welcome to Last in Line podcast, where we are highlighting, showcasing, and spotlighting great leaders of faith who have overcome adversity, cultivated resilience, and served others in a significant capacity. So settle in and be encouraged by this episode of Last in Line podcast. Hi, I'd like to welcome Matt Chenard to Last in Line podcast. Matt is the founder of the Fit 5 investing system, as well as the Anchor method. He helps build resilient and consistent leaders in all areas of life. Matt is an entrepreneur. He's a coach. He's a gym owner for over a decade now, and he's passionate about helping people become anchored in their purpose. And he's created coaching services. He created a website and a program called True Alpha Coaching. Matt is probably most notably the guy who has been doing cold plunges and got kind of Instagram famous from doing the cold plunges. And he lives in Canadian province of Alberta, I believe, and he's been very popular regarding his ice baths, and so we talk a little bit about that. We have a good conversation about where his lifestyle engineer podcast has gone and how it's developed, and how his podcast is growing, his platform is growing, his coaching's growing. Matt's a true follower of Christ. He truly wants to see people win, and he wants to help serve in that way to build leaders, build coaches, build strong men to lead how they were called to lead. And so we're excited to have Matt Chenard. Welcome him to Last in Line podcast. Matt Chenard, welcome to Last in Line podcast. Great to have you today, sir.
Thank you for having me, John. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah, man. So mutual friend of ours, Scott Ramage, I believe, is who kind of name dropped you to me and then sort of reached out that way. And here we are. So we've known each other about 5 seconds. So this ought to go swimmingly. Speaking of swimmingly, you're kind of the cold plunge guy. I don't think that's really the label you intended to have, but that's kind of how I know you. And I know that that's a thing. Everybody's doing the cold plunges, but I don't know. I guess I just see you every morning just rocking that thing steady, like disciplined every morning. How did that become a curiosity for you? And then when did you start realizing, hey, there's actually some real benefit to this?
Yeah, I became curious when I developed an autoimmune condition, or it started to show itself, chronic hives. And there's a lot of stressful stuff going on, good and bad, in my life at the time. And I'm the type of person who likes to self-experiment and see, hey, if the doctors say this can't go away, then I'm going to find a way to make sure that it can go away. And so with that, I start to experiment with different diets, different training regimens, and also cold exposure, because I know it can lower systemic inflammation. And then once I started doing that, a combination of everything, or maybe nothing, I don't know, but it went away. My hives went away. But then as I started doing it, I realized, man, I feel good. Like, this feels really good. And that was about 6 years ago. And I've been doing it ever since. And it gives me clarity. It helps me not get sick, like, almost ever. And there's so many health benefits. So it's a staple. Yeah. It doesn't get easier, but it's definitely a part of my life now.
I didn't realize you'd been doing it that long. I mean, you probably were doing it before it got cool and trendy. But my wife has an autoimmune disease, a little bit of, I guess she's got a liver condition, which everything's revolving around inflammation. And so I believe the immune system's involved in everything. I actually work in that field selling infusion therapy for immune deficient patients. And so that's kind of my day job. But yeah, that wasn't the weird questions that I was planning on. That was just the cold plunge guy thing that I wanted to talk to you about. But so I've got the weird stuff coming out now, as if that wasn't, a little bit more out of the blue than normal. So I want to know, from your standpoint, you have a podcast, you probably are a guest on many podcasts. Do you have an idea when you're going into these? Like, give me an idea if somebody was to walk away from this podcast in 45 minutes or so, what are you hoping they're saying to the guy down the street or their neighbor about what they heard today?
That's a really good question. I think, yeah, you mentioned that I've been on a few podcasts now, and more so since my profile went viral. And I think what I want is that I'm the same each time, not meaning I'm saying the same thing, but that people can look at my Instagram profile and they can talk to me in person. They can receive my emails. They can have coaching with me, whatever it is. And they hear the podcast with me, that they walk away and say, he's the same person. I think that's a big deal. Especially when you start to gain a following, is I don't want to sacrifice that character in order to get more likes or get more of a following, or just try to attract people by being something I'm not. So kind of a roundabout way of answering that, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I like it. And I don't know if it's refreshing or surprising or sad that we have to clarify we are authentic people nowadays, right? I mean, we almost have to come out and say, because there's so many people that are doing it for the clicks, right? And the bait, the clickbaits and the followers. And so we have to sort of not only demonstrate that we're authentic, but talk about and make sure that we point out, look, this is a goal of mine, that people really know this is who I am. Right. I don't think it's always been that way. Usually, back in the day and wherever, you're a lot younger than me, I'm sure. But when I was growing up, like, a guy's word was a guy's word and a handshake was enough. Right. And you walk away and you go, okay, he wasn't faking. He's genuine. That's who he is, but now I think the technology and social media, those different things have kind of blurred the lines a little bit. So I appreciate you saying that, because I mean, you seem like it in the 5 minutes that I've known you, seem like you're pretty straightforward and you're not really out trying to impress anybody. You just kind of have a heart to serve people and go out and grind every day. All right. So here's the second one, icebreaker question for the listeners. I guess I'm sorry to not be sorry for the weirdness. No. So if there was a time capsule, and right before you, I recorded a podcast with somebody else, and that was the first time I'd ever used it. So you're number two. So, second place is not the first loser, contrary to popular belief. So time capsule for Matt Chenard, 100 years from now, somebody stumbles upon it, finds out that it's yours. What do you want to put in there? What do you want to leave that kind of stamps, or what's evidence of your impact in the world, I guess?
I love these questions. I think it would be that trying to help people understand there's truths and principles that have been here since the start, right? Mm-hmm. And all these books behind me are just derivatives of that. Like, they're just saying the same thing in different ways. Mm-hmm. So if you could articulate in a time capsule, helping people understand exactly what these principles, these truths are, that you can then put into different aspects of life, I think that's what it would be about. Because maybe cold exposures won't be here in 100 years. So if I just talk about cold exposures or cold exposure or fitness modalities, whatever else it might be, but the principles are the things that will stay for another 100 years, because they've been created since the start, right? So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to let you off the hook a little, but sort of not. So I want to know a tangible item. I want to know 2 tangible items you would leave in there.
This is hard.
I know.
2 items. I guess.
Yeah.
So these are false teeth on my one side, and I played hockey, so I leave those in there just for like a humor aspect.
That's hilarious. Yeah. May have to autograph them with a Sharpie or something. That's cool.
There you go. Yeah. Maybe I should autograph them even before putting them in there. Just walk around with them. Might as well, right? For the
ideas are just coming out left and right here today.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm having a hard time thinking of something else, like a legacy thing. I'm gonna go with my Bible. Let's go with that and have it highlighted and what I've picked up from it. Because that would be the truth, the principles there.
I would say, and I was going to kind of say that to your mentioning of the books behind you and the truths that are in all of those. You wish you could encapsulate those. And I think interestingly, we do have the ultimate truth in one book. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is a faith podcast. I know you're a man of faith. So yeah, the 99.9% of the listeners are Christians. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that would have to be in mine as well. And I didn't know if you had, like, some people will say, they kind of have a good luck charm or like a medallion or, something that they like to carry around. But those are good answers. I appreciate you saying the Bible. That was really good. All right. So again, I'm learning, just like the listeners are, about Matt Chenard today a little bit. So kind of paint us a picture, maybe with a broad brush, of your background coming up before you became an entrepreneur, before you became a coach, before you were the cold plunge guy, before fill in the blank. So how did you get, like, take us through some of your teenage years, maybe some leaders that you admired and tried to glean from, and then just kind of go from there.
Yeah. So I born and raised in a Christian family, small town in Alberta, Canada, the Texas of Canada, Alberta is, and played hockey my whole life. I mean, whole life being from, I think, age 5 to 21. Learned a lot of character building things in that, whether that would be from good leaders or whether it would be from what bad leadership is, and from how good culture can be created and how there's a lot of poor culture out there as well. Mom and dad, strong Christians as well. I gleaned a lot of characteristics and values and qualities off of them. Two brothers, we all played hockey. I'm 6'6". My brother's 6'4", my other brother's 6'3". So we cost our parents a lot of money to feed us, and we were homeschooled so we could play hockey and just be outside a lot and just enjoy our childhood. From there, started to get interested in health and fitness because I would train every single summer, because I was tall and really scrawny, I'll say that. And I wanted to learn how to put weight on. So I investigated nutrition, exercise programs. Then going from there, got my training certificates, started personal training as I was doing some construction work. Did not like the construction work. And then from there, opened up a facility, and then started to realize that I got stuck in this place where I was thinking, I can't just be a fitness coach forever. I like it. I love it. I like helping people, but there's something different. And so I hired my first business mentor from Two Brain Business. And I realized, oh, this is actually a career path. I never knew that. Like, in our town, it's not really talked about entrepreneurship. So once I realized that, it thrilled me. And I was so excited to start investigating that. Starting getting leadership certificates, mindset certificates, really investigating and learning myself, getting coaches, mentors in business and entrepreneurship, investments, personality tests. And then that's kind of brought me where I am now. Is I like to create things. I like to create things, create teams and cultures, and then help people run with it. I'm not the person to take it to the ultimate finish line. There's a lot more check the boxes type people around me that love doing that I'll let them do that. But that's basically me, as I like to create and vision cast and bring people along with me if possible.
Yeah. Well, so I'll reveal my ignorance and I'll be shameless about it. But when you say the Texas of Canada, I'm in Houston, Texas area right now. So what does that mean? The Texas, is it more, would you say, is it kind of rural and there's more of a cowboy feel, if you
Yeah.
will? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was good.
So
That's good.
every year we have something like 3 hours away from us called the Calgary Stampede. So it's a big rodeo, and people dress up and, well, they not even dress up, but they just come in their cowboy boots and hats.
I guess that's where the football team got its name. So that makes a lot of sense now, right? Aren't they the Stampeders, or are they not around anymore? Okay.
Yep.
Well, good. Clarified that. We can all hang up the phone and click off and we're good. We learned from that today. Yeah. No, so you got multiple businesses, it sounds like. I mean, or maybe multiple pronged off of the same umbrella business. I don't know, but I mean, we're talking. I guess on your website, I was looking at like, so the anchor method is a big thing for you. That's more, I guess, a philosophy and kind of some foundational principles that you go by. You've got the Fit Five investing. Is that right? Greater purpose, health and fitness, and then true alpha coaching. So what is your main focus? And I guess that would probably be the answer to this next question, but maybe it's not. But maybe do you feel more gravitated toward of those multi-pronged approach? What do you feel like most is your wheelhouse?
Yeah. So the Greater Purpose Health and Fitness is a 10-year CrossFit affiliate. So we rebranded 2 years ago to Greater Purpose, and it houses our CrossFit Camrose affiliate. And that includes mindset, nutrition, and fitness. So personal training and classes. So over the years, I've worked myself out of there with the help of mentors so that it could afford me more time to do more. So in that sense, I like building the team. I like helping people, the team, and working out there myself. Right now, though, my main focus is the True Alpha coaching program. And the philosophies or the models or methods that I use in both Greater Purpose and True Alpha is the anchor method and the Fit 5 investing system. So the anchor method is basically one of those truths I was talking about at the start, is once something is rooted in purpose and has meaning behind it, your chances of success go up. I think most of the time people they fail to take it to the end because it was rooted in something more or less not meaningless, but surface level, like profit or more clients or all these different things. But when you can actually root your goals, whether it's physical, relational, professional, and or financial, in something that is service and impacting others, that's when you have a higher chance of success, and whatever success means to the person. And I mentioned physical, relational, and professional. That's the Fit 5 system. Is so being in the fitness industry for so long, I realized people are getting so caught up in just focusing on the physical aspect, but there's lots of different aspects that make us a whole human, right? Mental, physical, relational, professional, and spiritual. And this is where that system comes in, is making the daily deposits in all these categories of your life so that they continue to grow. I think we get so caught up in trying to fix acute problems or chronic problems with acute interventions. You see it in the physical sense, the relational sense, right? Marriages, the physical body, or even just businesses. We're short-sighted. We need to think the longer game. So
Yeah.
hopefully I answer your question there.
Yeah. No, good stuff. And I'm glad I could tie all those together. As a side note, though, you mentioned false teeth. I'm guessing you're not a real hockey player unless you have the front two are false. Am I right? I mean, at least two.
I mean, at least two, right? Let's say two, you need at least two.
Just to be the bare minimum, considered in the same even circles as real hockey player. I got it. Okay.
Or maybe it's that I wasn't good enough to keep them. Who knows? It could be.
I don't know. I don't
answer.
know. It sounds like you weren't afraid to mix it up with I would say bigger guys, but you were probably the tallest on the court or on the ice at the time. I didn't realize hockey players were that tall, but so anyway, I digress from that. I do like what you're saying, because the physical aspect, I would almost argue that main reason why a lot of New Year's resolutions that revolve around fitness peter out, because everyone is just fixed, or a lot of people are so fixed on just, well, my bicep didn't grow 3 inches this week, so I quit, or golly, I can't push as much weight as that guy, so this isn't for me. So I think there's some byproducts of physical, obviously, that lead into mental, spirit, even spiritual, I would say. I mean, the better I feel physically, the more energetic I am to go get in the word, or to serve people and try to live out this Christian life, not just talk about it. So I think the physical has so many tentacles, if you will, that improve different areas of our life. So the true alpha coaching, I kind of want to dig into some of that
Sure.
a lot. And now, forgive me, but do you have a book yet? Have you published a book?
I do not. I have a free small ebook on the anchor method, but that is one of my
Yeah, I have a feeling that's
deposits.
coming. I have a feeling that's coming soon. Yeah, I have a feeling you've thought about that more than once. So I can't wait to
Mhm.
see what that's about. Now, this coaching thing seems to be, I mean, it's been going on. I'm always late to the party when it comes to stuff. I guess I was a late bloomer my whole life, but coaching seems to be at its peak right now. And I think COVID and everything going virtual sort of poured gas on that fire and was a great thing. Did you always consider yourself, I mean, you were a trainer, but did you consider yourself like, what about you considered to be this coach? Like we all get into this trap of, you hear about imposter syndrome where you think, man, there's so many of those guys out there. What are people going to want to hear from me? Like, did you ever come through any of that? And I guess talk to me about the coaching aspect and just kind of what makes you unique.
Yeah, I think if you don't struggle with imposter syndrome, you're not growing, right?
Yeah.
You're becoming complacent. So I continually struggle with that. And why would I be the one to coach on this or to think I have insight to offer that might be of value to other people? And honestly, that's part of the reason I started filming my cold plunge chats, my daily cold plunge reminders. That started about 3 years ago. And the reason I did that is because I was nervous that I didn't have anything of value to share with people. And that was a way of me getting over that fear and just putting it out there. And hopefully, maybe it would impact one person because I felt that I had something to share and I felt like I had a different perspective on the world that someone could value from. And then, honestly, through COVID and the pandemic, I started to realize no one really has it figured out. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
might have some insight in places that people don't. So I've been, like you said, I've been a coach and trainer for well over 10 years. And I realized that coaching is the key to helping people get success where they
Mm-hmm.
want to have success because everything else is more just programming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Methods and helping people. So I like you need to know how to program. You need to know how to get someone to be able to run a faster 5K if that's their goal. But if you can't help them with their mindset and overcome some limiting beliefs or even imposter syndrome in multiple aspects of their life, it really doesn't matter, right? You could write the perfect program, whether it's for a business, for an entrepreneur, or for an athlete. And if they don't adhere for it, it doesn't really matter. So you can be a technician, as it were, meaning you know everything about the system, you know everything about tactics. But if you can't help someone get their mindset around it, it really doesn't matter. So that's where the True Alpha coaching program comes in, as I'm committed and on a mission to help men and ladies. Predominantly, I coach men, but become resilient, consistent, and disciplined leaders so they can create a positive impact and leave a lasting legacy, both professionally and personally. And when I say true alpha, I say true in front of the alpha because I think the word alpha has this kind of stigma behind it, meaning fancy cars or all this money or lots of relationships. No, that's not true. I mean, servant hearted, humble leader. That's what I mean when I say true alpha.
Yeah. Yeah. The alpha kind of has gotten that toxic connotation because of, obvious narrative that culture is trying to force. And
Right.
so guys like you and, this podcast and others that are actually trying to make a footprint in the right direction toward reshaping what society thinks masculinity looks like. And so you're helping with that cause, obviously, and maybe not masculinity, laser focused may not be your thing, but I think you're doing the things and you're living in a way that kind of exemplifies what biblical masculinity looks like. True servant leadership isn't weak leadership, right?
Oh,
Meekness isn't weakness. I think we all could look that definition up and realize that. So you have relational as one of the principles here. Talk about how this mental resilience and physical capability that you're doing in training and coaching, how does that mesh with being better at relationships, maybe a better husband? Because that's primarily, we've got guys on here who are married. So Well, how does that improve who we are as husbands?
Yeah, if you can't lead yourself, it's a lot harder to lead others, right? Lead your household, lead
Mm-hmm.
your employees or your team. If you lack discipline in one area of life,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to lack discipline in other areas, or you're going to lack discipline or you're going to be inconsistent. And so when I coach people, I focus a lot of time on the person and less time on the different aspects of the person, meaning professional or relational. I give them tactics, I give them methods to help them grow those aspects of their life, but they need to learn how to become a disciplined and consistent leader using that anchor method I was talking about before, so that they can have the impact all around. And so how physically working on yourself and mentally working on yourself, if you can do the difficult thing, meaning getting into cold or exercising consistently, you can do the difficult thing in having that humility to love first, because we're talking about Christ's love. Christ's love is not transactional. It's not, hey, I'm looking at Jaleesa, my wife, and saying, you need to do this for me so that I can then do this for you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that I don't struggle with that. I think we all do at times, but having that mindset and saying that courage, because that's what I'm kind of going around here, is that courage to love first. I think that is one of the most intimidating things, because once you love first and you don't receive it back, that sucks. That's hard, right? That doesn't mean that you can not live that way, because that's what we are commanded to live like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I and of course, unconditional love is that's called this agape love concept, which is without strings attached, kind of, for lack of a better terminology. But so I wonder if guys ever struggle, and maybe you have, and with this concept of, we've got to be, if we're going to be in this mindset to be hard, strong, capable, resilient, determined, disciplined, all the masculine buzzwords, like if we're going to be that mentally, what are some tricks that you have toggling back and forth? Like, you can't be that way 100% of the time. Like in business, you can't walk in like you're about to deadlift 400 pounds, or you can't
Right.
love your wife like you're curling a 50-pound dumbbell. Like, it's got to be, how do you toggle mentally and kind of put on different hats that as the situation dictates?
I like that question. So you mentioned meekness, right? And
Mm,
correct me if I'm wrong, but meekness is, you said like meekness isn't weakness, but it's a controlled
yeah.
strength,
Mm,
right? And I think that's what it is. It's
mm,
developing yourself with different disciplines, whether it's spiritual practice, being
mm,
disciplined with that, whether it's cold exposure, whether it's a martial art, whether it's like jujitsu or something like that, or going to the gym or eating healthy, and then using that discipline and controlling it, but showing up in the right, like, as the person for the situation at hand.
Hey, before we get back to the conversation here with our guest, I want to thank one of our sponsors, a new partner, Uncommon, which is a ministry that is equipping and empowering great men to become the husbands, the fathers, and leaders they were called to be. Go to uncommon.org. That's UNCOMMEN.org. Check out their content. Go to YouVersion, download their devotionals. Great team, great people, great men, and they're out there for you. They're out there with great content, and they're out there to encourage us to be the men we were called to be. So I want to thank TJ and his team at Uncommon. So now let's get back to the conversation with our great guest here at Last in Line Podcast.
Meaning, if someone needs a strong leader in a sense of making a decision quickly, which we had to make a lot of decisions in the pandemic really quickly that could have good or bad outcomes from them. And you need a leader that is strong to do that and has mental resiliency to take the backlash of that for the team. So you need to develop those disciplines so that you're prepared for that. But then at the same time, you have to be aware of the situation and the context of showing up as more of the listener and understanding your team or understanding your wife. And I'm continually learning how to do that. And I'm more and more asking is to Jaleesa, is this a listening problem or do you need me to help fix problem? And I think that takes a lot of wisdom. And I think wisdom is gained from either going through it yourself and learning from it or learning from others who went before you. So that's what I would say is that's how you switch it. You have the strength. It's not that you can't be strong or powerful. It's that you have to know what situations to use them in.
That's good. Yeah. The discernment involved is crucial. And like you said, to be kind of in tune with yourself spiritually helps you stay grounded in that baseline to where you can, okay, if this situation arises, I can be this guy, or you know what, I can be him because my wife needs me to be a little bit more tender here, but I can be tough over here. And I mean, it seems straightforward. And I know that might seem like it to the listener, a little bit of a weird question, but I think guys can get into some murky water when it comes to, I need to prove, right, how masculine I am 100% of the time to my family, to my boss, to my, I don't know that the guys that really truly are, I don't know that they feel like they have to prove it all the time. So I think that's what I'm hearing you say. So talk about, I guess, some coaching aspects when it comes to the men that are out there right now. Like, we're talking about masculinity. I'm asking you to solve all of our problems in this department here with one answer. But
sounds good.
What do you see kind of as the point of most deficiency when it comes to guys now? Guys that are actually trying to do it right, like not even the train wreck that's on the couch eating Cheetos. I'm talking about the guys that are getting up, grinding. Like, what do you see where we're missing? Where are the holes? Where are the gaps? And where's the common theme there? Have you seen anything that seems common?
Yeah, I think it's purpose. It's purpose in what we pursue.
Mm.
And when I say this, I mean, because it's been shown to us over and over and over that a masculine person or a successful person has all this money, all these cars, this super jacked fit body, which I'm not saying having any of those things is wrong. And I want to preface that. But what I'm saying is that if you lose yourself in the process of trying to attain these things, you're going to get there and say, I don't know who I am, because there's no meaning in those things. There's no intrinsic value, right? It is what it is at the time. And so that's the one big thing I see is people lack purpose and in the day-to-day life. And the question I commonly get asked or people struggle with is, I don't know my purpose. And I don't believe we're going to know exactly what we're put here on earth to do in the sense of the whole picture. Like, I can't look ahead and say, I'm going to do exactly this right time. But I think you can live with purpose. I think you can be purpose driven in every single thing you do with how you've been designed and what you've been entrusted to use. So instead of thinking of these outcome more focused things like money or relationships or prestige or influence as a success marker, think of them as things you can steward to impact people and live a life of purpose in the here and now. And for me, ultimately, hopefully lead people back to the kingdom, right? And lead them to that place with how I'm living. And that's a hard thing to articulate and show because you can't touch and feel it. But once someone grabs onto that and starts living day to day and it becomes intentional, they have the intentionality of being that leader in all the aspects of their life. They have way more meaning and fulfillment. And maybe the byproduct is successful career and happy marriage and all that good stuff that they want.
Yeah. No, I like that. Makes total sense. And I wonder too, you often, when you talk about purpose, I think people get caught up in this, well, I don't feel motivated versus I'm very disciplined. So I know this isn't a new concept. I think Jocko even talks about motivation versus discipline. I wonder if you have an opinion about how those words are misdefined, how you define them, what the differences are. One can go hand in hand, I guess, with the other, but one can't necessarily depend on the other. So talk about motivation and how that could be fleeting, and discipline is sort of already decided kind of thing. And you don't give yourself an out really with discipline. Like you don't have a choice in the matter. So give me an idea of how that motivation versus discipline impacts your life.
Yeah, I think motivation is emotional and situational.
Hmm.
And if we've learned anything from the past 2.5 years, I've learned a lot for sure, but that
Mm-hmm.
nothing is consistent. Meaning, if I'm reliant on external factors or
Mm-hmm.
even internal feelings for who I am and how I'm going to show up, that's going to be super inconsistent. And that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you can't rely on motivation every once in a while.
Yep.
You can use music like to get you going or whatever else. But if you're reliant on that to be disciplined and committed, I think that's the word we need to talk about is become the committed person.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think people want, they always talk about mental toughness and resiliency and discipline as if it's something that you attain. It's a choice, right? That people who are disciplined simply have a stronger reason why to do the thing they're doing than the excuses they could lean into to not do it, right? Like, I don't want to hop in the ice tub or do cold exposure every single morning, but I committed to myself and I committed now to almost like 32,000
Mm-hmm.
people on Instagram. And that's a motivator to me, right? Eventually it becomes a motivator, but I'm not reliant on that. And that continues building momentum. And I kind of see it like this is you do the small deposits, the small disciplines, the small habits consistently, and that builds momentum. And if you think about it, momentum, once something has mass, right, and it has momentum, it's really hard for external friction to slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
But motivation is more like that bullet out of a gun. Like it's going to go super fast, but eventually it's going to slow down, right? That velocity is going to slow
Mm-hmm.
down. But you want to build an object of mass that can develop that momentum so external friction doesn't slow it down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, the commitment I think is huge. And eventually the discipline, and it could be semantics on the wording, but the disciplines, I've always kind of equated that to being sort of the sustaining fire that's in you, and the motivation's more of the spark kind of thing. And that's what to your point on emotions and feelings, I've kind of explained it to those who've asked, like motivation has to make a decision, right? This discipline's already decided. So ahead of time, like you don't have to convince yourself the night before that you're going to get up and do the cold plunge in the morning. Like you're not negotiating with yourself on ways why you shouldn't, or reasons you shouldn't. So the discipline you're already built, that's already baked into just sort of who you are now. It's part of your character, it's part of your routine. And like you said, that creates the momentum and motivation. Yeah, I think you put that very well by just kind of it's fleeting. It might come out of the cannon really, really sharp and really hard and fast, but there's nothing that sustains it. So yeah, I like that. I wanted to get your take on that because obviously you have to be motivated. I mean, there's nothing wrong with motivation. You have to be motivated to really kind of kick yourself a little bit down the road, but then what's going to sustain you, I think, is creating the muscle memory and the discipline to just maintain. Yeah. So the purpose is what I hear you saying is kind of one of the major gaps that guys are trying to find the missing piece for. Um, and I wonder, do you get challenged to talk about the Bible or spirituality to your clients? Like, is it all encompassing of your client base is all Christians? Like I hear some coaches that are Christians don't necessarily say, hey, we're a Christian coaching company. We're putting biblical foundations at the forefront of our teaching, those kinds of things. And some do. So, I mean, I'm interested to know, had any sort of internal maybe struggles with how out in front you are with that?
Yeah. So I've had lots of conversations with fellow coaches and inner circles of mentoring groups or Bible studies I'm part of, and even with my clients. I had a couple months ago a conversation on this, and I am like on my Instagram profile, Christ follower.
Mm-hmm.
I make sure that that's at the forefront so people know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But in turns, my coaching calls, I don't necessarily lead with that unless someone wants me to. Like I'll
Mm-hmm.
be upfront and I'll say, if it goes in that direction, hey, I'm a Christian and this is what I believe, but I'm not going to force it on you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be who I am. And the conversation revolved around this with one of the people I have the privilege of coaching. And it came off as if I wanted podcast was on, it came off as if I meant to say that you can't get success physically or relationally or professionally if you're not a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really good conversation because I don't want to come off that way. I know that you can have a successful career. I think you can have a happy marriage. But at the end, if we're talking about spiritual fulfillment, I don't think you can without Christ, right? I think that's where a lot of people are searching and where a lot of people are struggling spiritually. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to be in my program and think that they can't run faster or have a better culture but if they're lost in a spiritual sense, I think that's where they should start to look in for Christ and start to investigate that and pray for my people, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that I can be a good example and a platform for that. But to answer your question at the end there, I'm a Christian and coaching people with biblical principles, but I'm not forcing them to believe what I believe.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. And I was curious if you ever had that come up in any conversations, or if you ever had like an internal conflict with yourself about how upfront you want to be with that. And sometimes the more bees with honey could look like you ease into those conversations, or you just live a certain way and they want, if they're around you long enough, they kind of get curious. And that's sort of the idea. Living in an echo chamber full of just happy little bubble Christians isn't necessarily ideal. Like, we're trying to meet and greet and seek lost people, right? And grow the kingdom. And nothing wrong with obviously surrounding yourself with good Christian people. That's a no-brainer. But to that whole point, you will attract people to the faith by how you broach the subject, or how you just kind of let the subject come to you, and the conversation come to you. So that's a great answer, and I'm glad to hear that, because yeah, you want to have an opportunity and the door to be opened at some point to share the gospel. But if you're beating somebody over the head before they ever get comfortable with you, you lost the opportunity. So
Yeah.
I guess there's a balance and a fine line kind of there. You have anything to add to that?
No, I agree. And ultimately it's not up to me when someone opens their heart or
Mm-hmm.
when they ask that question either, right? You said you can't
Mm-hmm.
force it. And going back to your first question with the time or the
Mm-hmm.
podcast, if something could take something away from that, is I want as best as I possibly can. I know there's a lot of grace in there, and
Yeah.
God needs to help me through this too, but as best as I possibly can to live in a way that people see an authentic joy
Mm-hmm.
regardless of my circumstance. And that's the resiliency I think that I want to embody, is that no matter what's happening in life, no matter what I have or don't have, or if I succeed or fail, that I'm still me, because I want to live into that truth that even though I don't feel it all the time, that this, this, nothing I have now compares to helping someone find Christ
Mm-hmm.
and having a relationship. Um, and that's a
Yeah.
daily reminder I need to tell myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good, man. So how long have you been married?
This is our 11th year.
11th. Okay, cool. Any kids?
No kids.
Okay.
One big dog.
Yeah, I see that, the dog, and every, if dogs could talk, I think he would think you were a little crazy every morning. And I think he's like, I'm burnt out on the ice cubes, buddy. No, no, but that's I just shake my head when I see you. I don't have necessarily the setup yet. Now, um, I get, shamefully or not shamefully, I've tried to start easing myself into this concept. So I get in a couple times a week. I get in the hot tub outside. So it's in the 30s or 40s here at night. Nothing crazy, nothing like what you deal with. But bear with me, I'm in South Texas, so great
Yep.
on a curve when you start judging me here. Um, but the temperature in the pool is like, I don't know, 50, high 40s.
Chili.
And when you get out of the hot tub, that feels like 20. So I've convinced myself that I'm cold plunging, which I really am not. But I will say, I think about watching you do that, and it does kind of help me get into a mindset of, look, this isn't as bad as you think. And it's not like nobody's gonna die.
Right.
So I don't know, for whatever it's worth, I have been. Whereas before I was like, that's ridiculous, I'm not doing that, to now I'm kind of a couple times a week doing a version of that. Maybe I'll graduate into some, a trough with some ice. And I got to know, did you purchase an ice machine, your own ice machine?
No, so in the summer, I just buy ice or I cold shower. I did buy a chest freezer that I'm going to store meat in, but also buy tubs that I'm going to put water in and freeze it in there and then put it in a tub. That's a cost-effective way. Also, I'm having conversations with cold plunge companies to hopefully create a collaboration.
Yeah. And you can go ahead and say it right now. You can say a sponsorship. That's tremendous. I hope they do sponsor you. I hope you get all kinds of endorsements, because that's
I would
pretty
love it.
cool. But yeah, where you live, you could just put a glass of water out there and you got a big fat ice cube by the time you wake up. So,
Yeah, some of
what
those
is
days are
the,
frigid.
yeah, I mean, not even, we have no idea what you're going through. Just like when it's 110 down here in the shade, you can't really empathize.
No.
All right. So before I let you go, man, I don't know why, but this just kind of came up in me the minute I just said empathize. And I want to get your take on, you mentioned listening in a wife scenario.
Hmm.
So I guess as a parting shot to kind of go back in full circle to the marriage component for guys, help us be better, more empathetic listeners. And I think you hit it right out of the park when you said you got to clarify up front with her, like, is this a fix or is this a listen? But beyond that, what has made you a good, because you got to be this in coaching, what's made you a good empathetic listener? Because I don't know that we're born that way.
Yeah, this is taking me a while. I'm continuing to learn it. And I use tactics so I can make them automatic,
Mm,
meaning I have a paper and pen beside me. And the reason I have a paper and pen beside me is if I have a thought or something I want to interject, or somehow I want to help fix something, I write it down so that if the opportunity comes up, or it is a time where I've asked my wife, and I don't usually have a paper and pen beside me, but I try to lock it back in my head. I say, I have it written down so that I don't forget it if it is of value in a couple minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is. And then I can be more present and listen in
mm-hmm,
that moment. And that has really helped me in coaching too, is understand that my job is to help the person across from me, whether it's virtually or in person, understand themselves better by talking and asking questions behind questions and being curious about them, but also for me to understand them better. And the more I coach, the longer I've been married, I start to realize it's, yes, understanding yourself, but it's understanding the person across you in contrast to how they answer things and how they see the world. Right. I'm very clearly getting the answer over and over and again that we're all built differently and we see the world very differently. And it
mm-hmm.
takes a lot of curiosity and patience to actually want to know that. And sometimes it might not feel authentic. to not say anything and to look in the eyes. But I think with time and consistency, that becomes a natural thing and it gets easier and you ask better questions, because it's all
Yeah.
about the questions you ask to bring out the answer for themselves instead of you
Mhm.
having to say it.
Yeah. So has marriage made you a better coach or vice versa?
Both. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I think coaching and realizing that everyone's going through similar issues, and knowing that if I can be patient and try to ask questions without forcing my opinion when having conversations with my wife, which is arguably more difficult for me,
Mhm.
I can definitely do it in my coaching sessions.
Yeah, and I think it would be more tempting to try to fix everything in a coaching environment because they're paying you, they're
Yeah.
coming to you for answers. So it would be very tempting to maybe be less empathetic almost because you have solutions that you feel responsible for, contributing. So I would think it would almost be harder to coach and be empathetic. But again, you got to listen, and you got to, in order to meet a need, you got to understand what that need is fully and where they're coming from, and kind of climb into their skin for a minute. So yeah, I like that. Because the reason I asked you about which made you better is whenever I was in leadership in corporate America, being a parent actually made me a better manager, which is crazy because it's really almost like herding cats in a corporate environment when when you feel like you're babysitting sometimes. So that's
Right.
why I asked that question. But okay, so I know you got a busy, I'm sure, weekend, and that water is not going to freeze itself. So I'm going to have to let you get back at it. But before that, why don't you let us know where to find your resources? Obviously, where to find you on Instagram, because I would assume that's where you're most active. So help us get more of your stuff.
Yeah. So at Matt Chenard on Instagram, and that's where I reply to majority of my messages. Building out another website, truealphacoaching.com. It's held on a domain name currently, but I'm building on a different platform. I have a free anchor method ebook in my links on Instagram, discount codes, whatever else, all on Instagram. So the best place to go is at Matt Chenard. And then soon to be released will be my Lifestyle Engineer podcast. So you can sign up for that notification in my Instagram profile as well.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Can you give us, I don't know, give us maybe a couple of ideas that you think might be a book down the road? Like, what are you leaning towards? What's kind of top of mind, gun to your head? If you had to do a book right now, what would be conceptually what it's around?
Yeah, it's a dangerous question to ask me
I
about
know
my
it is.
ideas, because people that know me, I don't lack ideas. I
You're
lack
going
the
to
ability
unroll the
to,
scroll, aren't you? I get it.
yeah. So one would be the idea of holistic health and fitness,
Okay.
right? Like if you take these blue zones in the world, places where they have the largest percentage of people per capita living to be over 100, there's aspects that faith, family, community, purpose, all these different things. And that's what the Fit 5 flywheel is
Mm-hmm.
that condensed down into an actionable way of making deposits.
Mm-hmm.
So investing, um, time investing, that's another one. The anchor
Mm-hmm.
method would be another one. Purpose would be another one. I hesitate to write a faith-based book because it's intimidating to me. It really is, meaning I would rather just talk about business or personal development and not blur the lines in people thinking that you can earn your salvation. So that's why I lean more towards this side. And I know there's a lot of deeper thinkers and very strong theological based people that have that handled right now.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. Well, I appreciate it, man. I know we're on a Friday afternoon, and we're on personal time, so I appreciate you doing this, and I've enjoyed the conversation. And I'll put all the links in the show notes, and then your Instagram page, all that. But anything you want to get off your chest at the end? Maybe a parting shot at all? Maybe in a 30-second.
I need to say, John, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Thank you.
the opening questions were great. It really got me thinking.
Yeah.
I haven't been nervous in a little while on a podcast.
Well, yeah, if I can make my guests uncomfortable right out of the gates, I
Yeah.
think I've done my job.
If
So
you got me too uncomfortable, you've won. Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. Yeah, you're a hockey player. I doubt you get uncomfortable. So good on me. No, hey, I enjoyed it. Audience, he's been Matt Chenard. We've been Last in Line. Be blessed.